Hey everyone, it's Horror Free for All, and I hope you're doing well today. So I'm joined here with my good friend Bruce, aka the Goose Block. How are you doing tonight, Bruce?
I'm doing really good. I hope everybody watching is doing really good. Today we're going to be talking about some very interesting movies. I've only seen two of these, and the last time I saw both of them was when I was like 6 years old or maybe seven. And don't turn that into a brain rot meme, but that is true. I haven't watched these in a very long time, and the other ones I've never seen. So these are all relatively new watches for the most part, and I'm excited to talk about them. So thanks so much for inviting me on.
Hey, anytime, man. And I think Bruce has kind of hinted at what we're going to be talking about today. So I decided to pitch to Bruce, hey man, let's watch some kids horror movies from the mid 2000s, from the dark ages of kids horror, which is the focus on this collab video. So Bruce, I mentioned to you on Discord, I believe, that once upon a time, once the heyday of R.L. Stein kind of ended in like 2001, maybe 2002, there's a
Mhm.
period between that and Goosebumps Horrorland coming out in 2008, which is basically known as the Dark Ages in kids horror, to me at least. And in that 5 year span, there was basically nothing. And I mean nothing coming out. I mean, you might have had mostly Ghostly from R.L. Stein as a book series, maybe Rotten School, but who wants to talk about that? Harry Potter craze was like at the all time height. So, like, until Harry Potter was done, there was no chance of kids horror
Yeah.
coming back. And coupled with that, I feel like when it comes to the books, I think people were just burnt out on the stuff from the 90s and the early 2000s to where it kind of went away for a while. And the only way that kids horror survived really were going into niche territory, whether that be amusement park rides or straight to TV movies like the early 2000s did, but not the same stations that people were watching them on. And then, and then we started getting theatrical movies, and then near the tail end of it, we started getting people from the heyday of the '90s kids horror craze that were affiliated with like the Goosebumps TV show coming back into the woodwork and approaching people like R.L. Stein to reinvigorate kids horror again. So it was a weird time. Not a lot was coming out, and really, we picked five movies to talk about. We technically could have maybe talked about two more, but I don't really consider them in the same vein because these two things you probably have seen ad nauseum in places like Spirit Halloween and stuff. And I feel like once you transcend into that, that's not really obscure enough. So we wanted
Yeah.
to dig down into forgotten territory, basically where films ruled the land for 5 years of kids horror. And
Mhm.
we picked five things to talk about today, and I've seen them all before, but I knew that Bruce here hasn't seen a good amount of them. So a couple of these were first time watches for you, Bruce. I'm going to give you the spotlight real quick. Since we haven't gone over the titles or anything of the movies yet, what was your first impressions, just as a whole, on these things that you watched during this time?
First impressions. Wow. As a whole, I'd say that, and I kind of watched these in a wonky order. I did not watch them when they came out or anything like that. But I would say that these have an interesting feel to them. At least the mid to late 2000s stuff, there's a lot of just less goosebumpsy feeling stuff, if you catch my drift. I think it's kind of bleeding into the early 2010s, maybe. And I'm not sure if that's just what I can recall, because of course I wasn't around for the 2000s, really. So as far as the earlier 2000s go, which we're not even really talking about for the most part, I think most of that still feels like a continuation of the 90s. A lot of this stuff we're talking about today, I think, I think kind of just feels like a lot of the stuff I watched growing up. You know, I'd see movies like this on TV, DComs and stuff. Not very much because I was so young and, who knows what I was watching, probably SpongeBob or something, but it's interesting to kind of go back and look at these lesser budget films that were really trying to push maybe a couple last breaths out of kids horror, or at least they thought they were. As we all know, kids horror made a very good return in the 2010s, but yeah, I thought that this was a really interesting watch through. I thought that a lot of these movies were just kind of, even though I wasn't around for them, kind of nostalgic, you know?
Yeah, yeah, man. I have to agree, man. And to put into perspective, when when these movies came out from the time period, we're looking at 2003 to about 2007. I was in my prime age of being a Goosebumps fan, or at least the target demographic that Scholastic used to target these books to kids. I was reading Goosebumps well below the intended audience as a kid. So by the time 2003 rolled around, I was probably 9, pushing 10 years old. And by the end of 2007, I was in eighth grade. So
Yeah.
I literally spent my peak years to enjoy kids horror in the dark ages the entire way through. So I had to grow up on reruns or like old VHS tapes I had of Goosebumps, or maybe I might have had a couple of DVDs of the show on rental at Blockbuster. Same thing with Are You Afraid of the Dark's television show. I would catch stuff like that. But in terms of new content, it was like trying to find a needle in the haystack because I was always looking for this stuff. And when I found something that felt at least close to it, I loved it. I was like, all aboard. I'm sold. I want to just own this movie and watch it endlessly. And I did for
Yeah.
a couple of these. But I will say, as an adult, looking back on basically all of these movies, minus one, I do think that the nostalgia bubble kind of starts to pop a little bit with some of them, even though I do have nostalgia for them. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. These movies are basically all forgotten. I mean, some of them you might recognize if we bring them up. You'd be like, "Oh yeah, I remember that one. Oh yeah, they played that on ABC Family or Freeform, right?"
Hmm.
Some you might be able to recognize, but some of these you probably have never heard of them. Especially one movie we're going to talk about. But to me, they stick out in my memory because they were literally the only thing new coming out that wasn't reruns. And that's the sad reality of this time. And I wonder how many people out there are like me who are like perfectly in that, fourth grade to eighth grade range in this time period where we're supposed to be enjoying Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark and stuff like people did before us in their prime, but we had to enjoy them in reruns or we watched them as younger kids and we weren't the target demographic yet. I've always found that fascinating. I know Mike. I think Michael Goosebumps fan is the same age as me, so I think he would relate to this. But um, yeah, getting sidetracked. I guess we should go ahead and start talking about these, right? So we've already hinted, Bruce, that some of these they were theme park attractions. Some of these were straight to video. Some of these were theatrical release movies. Some of these are return to form for heyday writers.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you the floor with the first one here. So we're gonna talk about a movie technically that was actually a theme park attraction at SeaWorld for a couple of years, and it's called R.L. Stein's Haunted Lighthouse. Bruce, what did you think about this? Knowing that you didn't ride the ride around this time because you weren't around, um, how did you feel about the watching experience? Because I know you didn't get a chance to ride it. So
Ooh. Well, I'm trying to think. What year did this come out? I just want it for reference.
2003.
2003. Oh, that's a while before I was born. 6 whole years. Yeah, this movie, or I guess short film because that's what it is. I wanna say this. I didn't see this in some nice high quality like my boy Austin did. I had to watch this in crappy quality that someone's like someone must have recorded with a with a video camera in a, I guess, an auditorium or something or other where they could play this 4D movie. And of course, I can't feel any of the cool special effects that 4D stuff has, even though I have been to one 4D attraction before, and I can kind of assume that it might have had some similarities. I can't say that I really experienced this movie to, maybe the best I could have, right? So I'm coming into this movie really looking for story then, you know? And story wise, it's okay. I think that a movie like this doesn't have to be special. It's not trying to be special, but I think it could have been. Uh, it's just your average kind of ghost story, and there's cool moments, and the CGI is pretty awful at times, but there's also parts where I actually kind of dig the effects, right? I hate to say it, sometimes cheap effects make it look almost a little more interesting, and I think that's definitely the case with some of the ghosts. You know, I I just feel like for a 20-minute long, I mean, it's basically the same length as a Goosebumps episode, Are You Afraid of the Dark episode, Haunting Hour. I feel like this just doesn't offer that much for me, and it kind of feels like a waste of time as you know, you could watch literally any of those other shows, and there's plenty of good media and content inside. With this, it's a one-off kind of thing that once again, I don't think they were trying like that hard to push this crazy story out on us, but it it has Christopher Lloyd,
Yeah, it
which is
does.
a good actor, right? And I think that the whole idea is kind of interesting, even if it's basic. There's nothing wrong with basic stories as long as you can do it right. And actually, that's kind of what I have to say about another R.L. Stein story, Ghost Beach. Just want to throw that out there. Ghost Beach, also about ghosts, also has to deal with kind of like a not a tropical area at all, really, but just like near the area of water. And I don't know. I think they're both basic. They both do it well. Do they do it great? No. There's
Mhm.
definitely issues. And this movie, although I can have fun with it, I just don't see myself coming back to this one. You know, 20
Yeah,
minutes.
watching it, I think it defeats the purpose to experience it that way, especially when you can only experience it online, at least with like fan recordings. And I think there is a master copy rip online, but there's like a watermark all over the screen about it. So you can't you can't use footage of this movie in like video like essays or anything without the freaking copyright thing
Oh,
right in your face on it.
so annoying.
Yeah. So I can speak on this because I remember seeing this in SeaWorld, I think around 2004, 2005, when I went to Disney World the first time ever. We also went to SeaWorld that year. I think
Hmm.
it was like '04. And I remember seeing this there. It was R.L. Stein related, and I was super excited. I remember going to the gift shop after, and they had T-shirts. They had like a souvenir glass. They had like this trophy looking thing. They even had a book, which I have now in my collection, where R.L. Stein wrote the story out in book form. So if you want to read it instead of watching it, you can do that. This is one of the three movies we're going to talk about today that actually has a novelization. If you want to read it instead of watching it. Um, so I haven't read the book version, at least for posterity for this video. I only watched the film. But if you want to count the book as a technical kids horror book released during this time period, I mean, Arnold did write it, so it does count. My memory on the ride is kind of hazy. I do remember there being 40 elements to it. There was like a motion aspect to it, and there was like some interactive, like scents and maybe mists involved. I think there was maybe a water spray or something. I can't remember the exact details, but I do remember seeing it on screen. I thought Christopher Lloyd did a phenomenal job. I think Sarah Paxton is in this. I want to say she is like a very young Sarah Paxton's in this. as well, and DeVay Chase I think is in this from she's in something. Was it The Ring? I forget what movie she was in, but she was in something, and seeing her in this is really weird. But watching it as is, I'm like, obviously you're missing out on the experience. This is something that is made to be experienced, not necessarily watched casually as like an annual watch or anything. So if you're out there listening about this, if you go to watch it, just know up front, like you're not getting the attraction side of it. This is literally made to be an attraction for an amusement park, right? And I don't know how wide reaching it was. I heard a rumor that places in like Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, they have these 4D theaters on the coast there, and I think they had this movie for some time there, from what I gathered. But other than that, I haven't heard many other places getting this movie in, or I guess getting the license to air it. I think that 4D movie houses out there, especially in like tourist destinations, this should be like a Halloween staple. Like if you want people to come experience your stuff, have some Halloween themed ones. Haunted Lighthouse is a shoe in. I don't know. Maybe if modern players are, I guess, too futuristic for the technology they had back in 2003. Maybe that's why they don't.
Yeah, maybe.
Or maybe ride technology has just changed to the point where it's kind of archaic now. I don't know. I haven't ridden a 4D ride in years. So, but yeah, Haunted Lighthouse is pretty inoffensive. Yeah, Bruce, you look shocked when I said there's a book. You should probably go try to hunt down the book. Actually, I have a second copy, even though I think there's a page missing in the middle from the picture portion.
Ooh,
I can send that to you
yikes.
if you want it.
Yeah,
So you can read it.
I'd be down. I might buy that off of you.
Yeah, I have a
Gotta
second
read
copy if
that.
you want one. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think we're both on similar wavelengths with this. Like it's like inoffensive. It's not. I don't think it's anywhere near the worst
Hmm.
thing that we've talked about here.
It's
Because
good. It's a good
it's good.
movie.
It's good for what
Yeah.
it's trying to be. You
Hmm.
know, and that's all you can really ask for. We'll get into ratings near the end. I think we're gonna save our ratings slash rankings for the end to make
Yeah,
it all
sure.
suspenseful. But yeah, all right. So let's move on to the second movie that we watched. Um, so this one, I think both of us agreed was like easily the worst of the five. This was absolutely atrocious. This is like, I'm not exaggerating this, and this is not hyperbole when I say this. I think that this might be top five worst kids horror things I've ever seen or read and watched. You name it. This is down there. It's atrocious on every conceivable level. This movie came out in 2003 as well, but this was a straight to TV movie. And funnily enough, I can speak on this, Bruce, because I kind of hinted this to you before we got on to record.
Yep.
2003 was the first year and the only year for, I guess, the early to mid 2000s where Disney Channel did not have an original Halloween movie that year. So, I, being a young kid looking for Halloween content, was perusing my, Comcast cable, archaic, channel guide, and I saw that there was a brand new movie on the Hallmark Channel called Monster Makers. And I remember tuning in that year to watch Monster Makers, and I thought it fulfilled the void that I needed it to for that year. But I didn't really think it was that great of a movie, even as a kid. And lo and behold, I found out years later they made a DVD of this film. I don't own it in my collection, but there's a lot for sale online. And there's a really obscure Russian website that has a free to watch version that I linked to
Uh,
you, Bruce, and we watched it on there. And I gotta say, man, this movie was atrocious. I mean, it was just
oh.
bafflingly bad. And despite it having Linda Blair, who was Little Reagan in The Exorcist, despite it having Adam Baldwin, who was famously in X Files, and you might recognize him from TV shows like Chuck, and even having I forget the guy's name, but he played the old man in Old Chief Woodenhead in Creepshow too.
Oh
He was
yeah.
in this, and I was like, "Oh, look at this cast!" I think his name is George something. Um, it'll come to me in a minute, I think. But despite this cast, this had a laughably bad concept, laughably bad acting and creature effects at times, and a bafflingly just redundant, stagnant, and corny plot to boot. Um, take it away, Bruce. We're going to talk about that movie called Monster Makers. What's your thoughts about this movie?
Oh my god. Well, this movie is nothing short but just insanely awful. But it's almost so insanely awful that I have to forgive it for a couple things, right? I can look for okay acting performances, which is damn hard because the script is so fucking robotic. But I I look for, some fun Halloween spirit. Not much of that. Um a lot of this movie is just awful. There's little to no explanation for any of the plot events. The whole story's idea, I said this to Austin right before we recorded, is awful. Horrendous idea. I mean, it's like, who fucking came up with this? Just the thought that this movie is, for the most part being talked about, or I guess is talking about a movie that is apparently so bad that it never got released and all this stuff, quote unquote. We find out more about that later in the film. But this movie, I'd have to guess, is worse than the one that we're, being told about in the story. Because this movie's horrible. And how did this get out? You said this was on Hallmark. Honestly, that makes sense. I've never seen a good Hallmark movie in my entire life. I've tried, folks. Some white girls love their Hallmark Christmas movies. I've never gotten into them. I've tried a couple, and it's an experience, and this was too. I never want to go back to this movie ever again, but I don't find it offensive, and that is the only reason it's not my least favorite.
It's
So
not your least favorite. Okay.
yeah,
All right.
but this
Sizzling hot
movie,
take alert.
yeah, it's gonna be. But this movie, it like as much as I'll say, not my least favorite. There's stuff I can forgive. It's objectively awful in almost every way. It should be forgotten in time. It really should.
A lot,
It's
a lot about it is not a lot of people remember this movie. Hardly anybody talks about it when people bring up, kids' horror movies or Halloween classics from the early 2000s. This is on nobody's list. And
yeah.
despite the acting ensemble, nobody talking about it. And for a premise being about literally a forgotten horror film from the 1950s, it's like a 50s science fiction movie, I think. And the granddad of the story, he is supposed to be the creator of the movie, but it was hidden away for it being so horrendous for releasing real monsters into the world. And
Hmm.
when these kids decide to pull out granddad's old copy of it and start playing it on their projector in their living room, lightning strikes the fuse box and brings the monsters out of the movie into the real world. And you get this over the top sequence of events where you get this cop character and you see this rat man, this weird Ken doll thing. If you've ever seen Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 5, the
Oh
toy
God.
maker, it looks like that.
But
No,
worse.
don't even forget about the climax of the movie where it's revealed of what happens to this Ken doll. I'll leave it there, but
Oh my God.
we got that, and then you got this kooky mad scientist character on top of it to boot, and the whole movie is you would think like, oh, we got to stop these creatures and put them back in the movie, right? And it goes the whole route where they literally spend the middle of the movie just trotting along, just trying to find the monster here, monster there, and they come to this conclusion to change the script, the original script of the movie, and that's how they get rid of the monsters. It's so corny. It's so lifeless, dull. You know, the premise could have been something cool if they had a higher budget, maybe, and maybe they had a way better idea of how to bring it into the world. Like maybe if like they took like a horror land type of concept and they brought to life maybe a crazy, creepy theme park with like, I don't know, chainsaw wielding clowns or something. That would be an interesting movie. This just wasn't. It was just it was perplexing, like how just a nothing burger really was. And I this is one of the few times where I just have no words. You know, I've been trying to bring
Yeah.
myself to review this movie, but I really don't know what to say about it. I mean, there's just nothing that happens.
No,
Literally,
not really, because it's so repetitive too.
it's
Just
so repetitive.
the
It's
whole
just
idea, yeah.
oh
And
yeah, okay. You do have a young David Henry from Wizards of Waverly Place in here playing this like reckless kid, and he hijacks a vehicle.
oh my
you,
god.
you see kids driving vehicles in this movie, like little kids. Um, Maybe that's why Hallmark probably felt antsy to re-air this more than a few years because, my God, if the little kids saw this movie, it might actually send a mixed message.
Yeah.
But I mean, it does like I see what you're saying. It does have some charm to it. It at least tries to be charming. You can tell it's trying, but there's no gas in the tank,
Oh my
right?
god.
It's not
Yeah.
enough to get you there.
Oh,
But I can see the effort, but the execution was a wet fart, man.
and
Um,
and the kid actors are really bad.
yeah, there. I mean, we've talked about really bad Goosebumps, Are You Afraid of the Dark actors, man. But this takes the cake too.
Oh
I
god.
mean,
The
they're up there too.
the main girl.
Like,
Like, bro, a bad actor and a robotic as fuck script. Perfect combo.
you
It's
know, people use this term a lot today. This felt like AI. If you watch this movie, I can totally see people thinking that this might have been generated by AI, but no, it actually has a legit writer. Somebody wrote this thing. Somebody decided to greenlight this thing and make it too, thinking that'd be a cutesy, family-friendly horror movie. Maybe it was for the time for Hallmark Channel, but you compare this to any other movie of the time period from any other channel, this has nothing,
yeah.
absolutely nothing to offer.
Hallmark, please never cook again.
No,
Because this was horrible.
yeah, that's all we have to say about that one. We'll get into that near the end of the video with all the other
Yeah.
ones, but we'll leave it there for Monster Makers. Okay, so moving on. So now we're going to jump ahead a few years to 2005, and this is the first. You know, I felt kind of weird adding this on to this list, but this is kind of kids horror adjacent enough. Um, because at the time when this came out, um, there was like a little bit of a period where Hollywood was starting to test the ground with like, let's redo ideas that we've done in the past. You know, the requel approach or the legacy sequel thing. This might be one of the first legacy sequels ever made, in theory, because the movie we're going to talk about is actually a sequel to a beloved mid '90s movie called Jumanji. The original writer of the Jumanji Classic Kids storybook, Chris Van Allsburg, he also wrote books like The Polar Express. He decided to write a sequel to Jumanji called Zathura. And once the book released, I think pretty much a year before, the same year as this film, Sony was chomping at the bits to make a follow up to Jumanji. So this was Sony's first attempt at making a Jumanji universe by making a sequel movie that's not even related to Jumanji. I mean, it's called Zathura, so it's its own board game, right? This is a board game bringing you to different worlds, showing you monsters from the world, kind of thing, like Jumanji was. And at the time, this movie was kind of like a big family hit smash. It made a decent amount of money at the box office. It spawned a book. It spawned a video game, which a lot of movies did in the time. And this had a movie novelization, so this is one of the three movies that got a novelization. Also, it has the kids' story picture book. I don't know if that one's still in print, but I know Jumanji's been in print for years. So, um, yeah, this one's sadly kind of forgotten too. Um, and I'm gonna pass it over to you, Bruce, about your thoughts on Zathura first. I think this was what was this your second time watching it,
Yeah,
Bruce? Yeah.
yeah. I watched it a very, very long time ago. I had to have been probably 6 or 7. I'm not joking. I don't remember anything about, or I didn't remember anything about this movie. And then I kind of came into it like, I feel like I remember liking this and thought it was like a really cool idea. And I just got to be honest, I couldn't stand this movie. I feel like when like with I know it's kids horror adjacent, so it's technically unfair to view it like this, but it is a kids movie or a family movie at least. And I look at kids movies a lot different than adult movies. A big thing that I look at in kids media is just straight up, am I not annoyed by something? Crimson Clown from Are You Afraid of the Dark is so annoying to me. Like it like makes me mentally upset. Like I'm like, God, I fucking hate this main character. Oh my god, I want to strangle him. With this movie, I don't think any of the characters are that bad, but the characters are all bad, just not nearly as bad, and that equals just about the same amount of bad as Crimson Clown's main character. And I think what sucks is that that was 20 minutes has the advantage. This is an hour and 30 or 40 minutes. So with this movie, just said it, but I'm going to restate it. The sister character, get out. Horrible. I I know a lot of younger folks. I saw this when researching the film. A lot of younger folks say that she's really hot. I don't care how hot she is. She is so annoying. Like, talk about one of the most annoying people I've ever seen in a movie. Oh, and if that wasn't, the most annoying character in the movie, I'm not joking. The youngest brother, oh boy. Oh, I mean, once again, a lot of people think he's cute, not in the same way as the sister, but it's like a cute little kid. Yeah, at times he yells all the time and he's fighting with his older brother, who is actually my least favorite character. I think this character is awful. I can't stand him. The whole thing about the parents, when the dad leaves the house and he's all obsessed with his job, if I can remember correctly, he's just being a dick to his brother. And I think that's the reason why this little kid becomes a bad character. It's because of this really bad character. So this is one of the only times I've seen this in a film where I think a character was so bad that they made another character worse than they could have been. Overall, characters are horrible. I do like the astronaut though; he's a cool guy. Uh, First half of this movie's fine. I don't care for it. Second half of the movie, I'm kind of lost. I think I was honestly, this is my bad. On my end, this is totally my fault, and I shouldn't even be, I guess, on here talking about it. But I kind of like not like zoned out, but I definitely wasn't as into it. I was like, kind of multitasking, not on my phone really, but I was actually doing chores and shit because I was at home, and I'm like, well, why not? And I still caught most of the movie, most of the story. I think I have a pretty good idea of it, but yeah, I need to definitely actually watch the movie like, eye to screen this time and not just like pick up on words. I got to use visual cues as well. So that is my fault, but I did see a lot of this movie. I saw the entire climax just fine. And overall, I just was not into it at all. I think that this was a recycled idea and not for the good. I don't even really care for the original Jumanji movie. I haven't seen it in forever, but I guess this movie is better than the Jumanji remakes. That's all I can say.
Yeah, Zathura, I rewatched it this time around, and honestly, I don't have that much nostalgia with it as I do Jumanji, because I was watching Jumanji when I was a very young kid. So I
Hmm.
grew up with that movie, unlike Zathura. But I did catch Zathura in the theaters, I think, twice. I saw it in regular, and I think I saw it in 3D. And I remember playing the video game on the PS2, which is not that good of a game. I mean, if you're out there, trying to play, Zathura, the video game, just know it's not that good. Um, but the movie itself, this time around, I do think that this movie does enough to separate itself from Jumanji. Where Jumanji was a story about you had Alan Parrish getting lost in a board game, and then you had I think they're Judy and Peter, who are siblings who lost their parents, and they're trying to, I guess, play this game to distract themselves from having to move from their former lives to this new life that they don't really want. And they find Alan, who is also an orphan himself now because he lost his parents after all these years being stuck in the board game. And you go through this whole journey with, you have a dichrometric story going with Judy and Peter and Alan, which makes, I think, that movie a little more memorable, and I think more admirable. This movie kind of goes down the tongue-in-cheek cliche route with its story. You have these two brothers, I forget their names, and an older sister who don't really take each other seriously, and they don't appreciate each other. And this movie is definitely a story about having to learn how to love your family and love your siblings and blah 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 blah. And quite literally, one of the characters in the movie, the astronaut, played by Dak Shepard, is the older version of the older brother in the movie, who's from the future, I guess a just alternate future where he gets stuck in the board game, and he's trying to tell himself to love his younger brother, and try to fix the mistakes that he made. That's admirable. But I will say Zathura has way better monsters and villains. I think if there's anything you're going to come to see this movie for, it is I think they're called the Zorgans. The alien creatures are fantastic. they are they're pretty much like what you want out of a kids horror villain. Like that's why I consider this kids horror adjacent. They have a threat level. They're literally trying to kill these kids the entire film. And then you have this robot, which is basically, facilitating the role of the hunter from Jumanji, where he's like actively trying to hunt down the humans and whatnot. And there's even a fun plot twist with him that I thought was funny. The monsters in here is really fun, and what they're able to do with like the sci-fi nature, because Sathura is more sci-fi, as Jumanji's more adventure. Um, I do appreciate the sci-fi swings here a little more. Bruce, did you have something you wanted to add on?
Oh, I was just gonna say the effects in this movie are incredible.
Yeah, they are.
Actually, the best part of the movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, honestly, if they had Zorgon merch, I would buy some. I would buy the alien creatures because they look fantastic. I've never. I think I have read the novelization. I haven't read it in a long time, but I think in the book they actually go a little bit further with some things that we saw in the movie with some villainry and some horror adjacent scenes from memory. Because I was remembering something that the Zorgons did, and then I watched the movie. I'm like, wait, they didn't do it quite that way. And then I was looking into it with the book on the internet, kind of like going over the chapters a little bit, just skim reading. I'm like, oh, so it came from the book. So it's one of those things where maybe if you want a more immersive story out of it, you could possibly read the book. Sometimes that does work better if you don't like the movie, you don't like the narration. Maybe
Yeah.
the book version, the author could take a different approach, fix the narrative, fix the structure a little bit. It makes it more enjoyable. Sometimes that can be the case. But yeah, Zathura, I think, is a pretty solid film. I wouldn't like, in terms of like kids horror pantheon discussion, I don't think it holds a candle to even some of the straight to TV movies that Disney Channel was putting out back in the day in terms of like nostalgia. But it's a solid movie enough. Like especially for like mid 2000s family movies. Good God, there was like a string of years where there was just a lackluster run of theatrical movies, and basically Harry Potter reigns supreme every year. So like getting something like this was a fun shakeup for the time, and I can remember really loving it as a kid. And that's basically all I have to really say about it. I mean, it's a solid movie. It's not the greatest movie ever, nor the greatest movie we're going to talk about on this list, but I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we got two more movies to talk about. Um, so Sathuram was like the theatrical boom, right? And then right after that, in 2006, we got, I think, in my opinion, one of my favorite movies of all time. When this movie came out in 2006, y'all, I was in seventh grade. I was in peak back into Goosebumps mode because Goosebumps on Cartoon Network started. I was just gung ho, reading the books again. I mean, I was full steam ahead. And then I saw the trailer of this movie, and I knew I had to go see it. And literally, when I was a kid, I used to cut through the woods, about 20 minutes back into the woods behind my neighborhood, and then I'd show up at a movie theater. I went to see this movie about 15 times when it was in theaters. I loved it that deeply. And it's Monster House. Monster House. And Bruce, I think we're both kind of on the same page with this. I think you said you loved this movie too.
Oh yeah.
This time around watching it. I'm gonna give you the floor first, like we've been doing with all the other ones so far. What's your thoughts about Monster House now?
Well, when I first watched it, and once again I had no recollection of seeing this. I just remembered, I saw it. I bought the DVD at a garage sale, lost that DVD, bought it again like a year ago at a thrift store, and that's the one I, watched on this time. Going into this, not knowing what to expect, having no memory of the movie, I was like really hopeful, honestly, because I've heard so much good stuff, and all of that hype was incredibly worth it to me. Like everything in this movie is at least great, which is shocking. Like kids media that doesn't happen much. Like the animation, first of all, has a very unique thing to it. Like I'm not sure how to describe this stuff. I'm horrible at describing, but this movie's animation is just amazing. It really captures fall stuff, just in general, Halloween stuff too, with animation. And it's you know not cheap animation, but it's early CGI animation. I think this came out in 2005, so or 2006, something like that. Sorry, I can't remember already. Uh, no, but I think that this movie, animation wise, is like 10 out of 10. I think the voice acting is incredible. I think the main kid and his friend, the story writing, the character writing is amazing, hilarious. This was a really good time. I watched it with my mom. She loved it too. So I was like, while watching it, I just knew unless this like really shits the bed, doesn't stick the landing at all, I knew like halfway, I'm like, this is gonna be like an annual watch, right? And what's crazy to me is there isn't really a single issue with this movie either.
Mm-hmm.
I think the pacing's really good. I think that, maybe we didn't need the babysitter stuff, but it kind of adds this plot device, if you will, that is, needed. And also, I just want to mention this: the whole story's like ending, where they reveal that the old man isn't a bad guy, and that there's this really wild backstory that you would have never seen. You would have never seen it coming at all. I think that like this is just like a movie. I'm like speechless. I don't know what to say. It is perfect. This movie is fucking amazing. I don't know what to say. You're better at describing than I am, but when it comes to movies this good, it's hard to say what I really appreciate because I really just appreciate everything. So this is one of my favorite kids media, at least horror wise, I have ever seen. Probably in general too, because my gosh, is this good? And apparently Robert Zemeckis directed it, I believe, which is awesome because he also directed Back to the Future, one of my favorite movies of all time. So yeah, nice job.
And he directed Death Becomes Her, and he wrote
Oh
Bordello
yeah.
of Blood. We've come full
Oh,
circle.
Bordello
But
of Blood.
yeah, but Monster House. This movie is written by the creator of Rick and Morty and the creator of I guess a video game from the 90s called Scud the Disposable Assassin. He also created Community. He also wrote 2 episodes of Creep Show. You might recognize him as Bad Wolf Down and Public Television of the Dead. Rob Schraub. Dan Harmon and Rob Schraub wrote this film, and I can clearly see their humor all over this movie. When you know that information going in, it's fantastic. It's one of the best written animated movies I've ever seen. And I know a lot of people stand Coraline and Paranorman and movies like that. No, this is the best one of the three. Let's stop the debating, y'all.
Easy.
Those are the other 2 movies that we could have technically included here, but they came a little bit later. Anyways, Monster House takes place around Halloween. It's got that fall ambiance. It's got that unique animation style. It has that friends coming together, kind of like a misfit gang, motley crew of sorts, trying to solve a mystery about a haunted house in the neighborhood that comes to life and has rug tongues and pillar teeth, and its windows are its eyes. It's creepy. It's scary. As a kid, I saw this movie in 3D a couple of times. There was legit jump moments in 3D. I actually have it on Blu-ray 3D with my 3D Blu-ray glasses, and I watched it a few years, like maybe 2 years ago on it. It looked incredible. Reminded me of being in the theater. The animation does hold up. The voice acting is incredible. You have Kevin James in this. You have a young Mitchell Musso in this. You might recognize him from Hannah Montana. There's a couple other people in here. The voice acting is incredibly, incredibly good. I think even Maggie Gyllenhaal's in this. I don't want to say. Um, yeah, incredible cast. The story, it takes you for a loop because it's a legitimate mystery. These kids, they see the phenomenon happening. They see that this house is taking things inside of it, and they literally, put the brave gloves on, and they actually go and try to solve it. And the answers they find, you do not see coming, like Bruce said. I mean, there's a legitimate twist to it. It makes sense when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And the climax of the movie is really fun. It takes place on Halloween as well. It's just something about it, man. There's something about this movie that clicks. It's like watching Casper 1995, or it's like watching Hocus Pocus. It's like one of those type of movies where you're watching a classic. As a matter of fact, those are actually my big three of just theatrical, family-friendly horror movies. Those are the three.
You know,
You need
they
to
might
watch
be
those
my
three.
three as well. I'm not
I mean,
joking.
you
That
gotta watch those three every year, man. Um, and I love Casper 1995 and Hocus Pocus a lot, but I think this might actually be my favorite of the three. It's hard. It's like picking. I don't know. Your favorite NBA players of all time to be on
yeah.
a dream team, right? But yeah, this movie, everything about it that could work works. Um, it's classic, and honestly, I don't see it being talked about enough. There's not a lot of people talking about it. It's free on Tubi. I mean, it airs on Freeform every year. This is probably the most well known of the movies we've talked about, and like I still feel like people don't give it enough credit that it deserves. Can we start giving Monster House the credit it deserves? Because
Yes.
in the Dark Ages, this, in my opinion, was the clear shining light, and this was the beginning of a new leaf, the beginning of change. But it couldn't do it by itself. which brings us to our last movie. The very last one, the last movie of the Dark Ages. And some people might actually argue that this is the beginning of what people tend to call the Silver Age of kids' horror, which began with Goosebumps Horrorland and continued through the Haunting Hour TV show coming out on the Hub, bringing back Goosebumps, bringing in Haunting Hour, ushered in a brand new age of kids' horror. And some may argue that all of that is kind of owed to the success of this movie. Because when this movie came out in 2007, it had a strong, and I mean strong push on TV where they were advertising the crap out of it. They put then known teenage stars that were in shows like Hannah Montana and Sweet Life of Zack and Cody and stuff like that, Disney Channel people to try to really sell this movie. And Cartoon Network picked up the movie. And it's called Haunting Hour, Don't Think About It. Now, to express the importance of this, you got to know the backdrop. You have Goosebumps reruns on Cartoon Network. You have Monster House coming out in the theaters, making a big splash. So obviously, people are coming back and starting to put a claim in on kids' horror. Dan Angel and Billy Brown are two names that people might recognize from the Goosebumps 90s show. They get this bright idea to pitch to R.L. Stine, hey, we want to work with you again. We want to use your name and branding and do a new project with you because, we think that we can bring back what Goosebumps was doing. So he pitched to R.L. Stine a movie concept. And the film ended up being Don't Think About It. And R.L. Stine loved it, even though it was never a story in an R.L. Stine short story collection of the same name. And they went through and they pitched it to Universal. They got some sponsors like Dasani and Papa John's, and they gathered the funds through the sponsorship, and they produced the movie. Cartoon Network picked it up and aired it, and millions of kids saw it. And it was an instant hit. They sold a crap ton of DVDs. I think Blockbuster probably went through, I don't know, I swear they had like 50 or 60 copies when this movie first dropped. I can remember it. And it made such an impact that it changed the directory of how kids horror was going to go moving forward. I think it was the proof of concept, and it ignited a spark back in R.L. Stine to maybe want to go back to Goosebumps. It also was the jumping off point for Haunting Hour to get conceptualized as a TV show. And without this movie, there wouldn't be that. So I can, like I said, I can totally see that this might be the beginning of the Silver Age. But I think it's the end of the Dark Age for a particular reason, and that is it was the end of an era where we did not have kids horror. Right? This was the last one. This one came out in 2007, like I said. And Bruce, I know we might be kind of like similar wavelengths, but maybe different levels of appreciation about this movie. I'm going to pass it over to you. What do you think about Don't Think About It?
Yeah, sure. I think that this movie, I just want to get this out there, is actually pretty dang good, right? I don't think that it reaches per se great. It might be getting there, but it needs to improve on a few things. But I think for how cheesy this movie is, how decommy it is really just like it really does capture the Halloween mood. So there's that right off the bat. Our main character, I hate to use this word, is a little strange, but it's true. A lot of people are treating her different, which is not good. And I'd say the main guy in the story has to make this big decision on who he wants him to, help get his homework done because he's just failing math class and his dad's gonna kill him. And of course, he picks the popular girl who thinks that he's hot. And I think that this movie is cheesy as fuck. Honestly, it's a cornball movie. It feels like a ton of stuff I used to watch when I was young. I'm talking like Hannah Montana stuff, like what's some other like old Disney shows? All the Disney Channel stuff, right? Bizaardvark or whatever that was called. I remember that. There was a ton of stuff like this. Just the way it's shot, It doesn't feel super high quality. It was straight to DVD, and it oddly enough, I would say passes. Like it could pass the theatrical release, maybe on the lower end of it because of just some camera shots looking wonky, some effects maybe not looking amazing. Besides the monster, but very nice pacing. There's a lot of really fun stuff in here. There's a little too much like messaging for my liking. It's a little too like on the nose, but it's it's a fun watch. I had a lot of fun with this one. Actually, this is easily my second favorite of the bunch, just because of you know enjoyability, right? And I'm not
Yeah,
saying that as in what's objectively the best, because who knows what would be the best, right? This movie really really tries hard, and I think this is I didn't know this was made by those guys from Goosebumps, but now that I'm thinking about it, it definitely feels like it has a certain energy that those guys used to bring to the old '90s show. So it's interesting that I like this show, or I like that show, I mean, and I like this movie. So
yeah,
it's fun knowing that. Yeah.
yeah. Haunting Hour. Don't think about it. I had 2 good years in the Dark Ages, at least with Monster House and Don't Think About It. Like those two were like my absolute favorites in middle school, and like I always think back to this movie as like the capstone because after 8th grade, I fell out of Goosebumps and I, just was a normal teenager. you know, I didn't really delve too much into nerddom that much. I was just,
Yeah.
focused on my social life and stuff. But Don't Think About It was like the end of an era almost, and I remember loving it when it came out. I bought the DVD. I'm pretty sure I used my cheese stick coupon. I'm pretty sure I bought my copy from Blockbuster, and I remember seeing it on Cartoon Network, and it was a Halloween staple for quite a long time. Even the Hub, when it picked up the Haunting Hours TV show, this movie would air all the time. They would constantly say, "Hey, randomly on Wednesday night, watch the Haunting Hour movie." It has nothing to do with Halloween, but it's just randomly airing. I do see that the nostalgia bubble is still there when I watch this movie. Like it takes me back to that time of my life where I loved this movie. Now, as an adult, as an adult, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not trying to be brutal with this movie because I've already reviewed it, but
Sure.
I think it's like okay. It's like decent-ish. It's not an offensive movie, but it's definitely held back by obviously being funded by a water company and a fast food chain. All of the budget did not go into, um, dressing the movie in that much of a believable budget. I mean, you do have some attempts at setting Halloween atmosphere up with like some decorations inside of Cassie's house, who's the main character, or the school dance, or you might have some Halloween decorations of the neighborhood, seeing kids trick or treating, and it tries.
Hmm.
But it does look like a very cheap thing, right? Compared, like it's not as bad as Monster Makers, but it's
Oh
like
no.
easily in that camp. Just not to that severity. I do think that when it comes to like acting performances of these movies, um, this I don't know if this is a hot take. This might actually be like across from like pretty much the whole cast, probably the weakest performance. Like Cody Lindley's fine. I like the mean girl. What is her name? Priscilla. She was fun. Cassie was serviceable, but they don't do enough with Tobin Bell. They don't really go into his character shtick all that much. But this is a movie about the experience of the monster. We'll get into that
Hmm.
shortly. But yeah, not really a fan of like all the cliches that they throw in this movie either. Thinking about it, like we gotta have a Halloween dance, we gotta have a crush, we gotta have like a love triangle thing going on, we gotta have a corny thing with the little brother, and say what you will about the siblings from Monster Makers, but this little brother character might as well be in the same camp. He's a
Okay.
terrible actor, terrible
Okay.
terrible actor, and his character has to be one of the wimpiest characters in kids horror history, bar none. I mean, he's kind of like an overblown stereotype of the wimp. And he can be annoying, but he doesn't really just like ruin the movie because he does get taken out of the film at some point, so that does kind of help it. And he does have this redemption moment near the end. But really, for me, where this movie does shine, it has, like I said, it has the attempt at the atmosphere there, and the creature, the monster of this film, is absolutely fantastic. If there's anything that you cannot say is a knock against this movie, you cannot say this, is that the monster isn't good. No, it is good. Stop lying. It is a fantastic looking creature. What they're able to do is shocking. And I mean shocking, even for a straight to video movie. You see this monster's head splitting, and you see it spit, and you see its little babies that are trying to kill kids and eat them alive. That is insane. How did they get away with this? I mean, holy crap! I felt like I was watching Alien for kids.
It's scary.
Um, it was scary. It was scary as a kid, and I honestly, if you watch this movie in the dark, even though it's kind of hard to see because of how dimly lit it is at some points
Yeah.
in the movie, but if you watch this movie in the dark, it can get to you a little bit. You're like, oh crap, that actually does work. And putting past the ads that are blatantly in the movie because they sponsored it. This is a charming film. I would say this is charming. This is written by Dan Angel and Billy Brown, after all, y'all. I mean, they used to run the heyday of the Goosebumps show back in the '90s. Um, and they made stuff like Trilogy. They wrote, I think they wrote Haunted Mass 2's episode, and a lot of other iconic things from the show.
Yeah.
And this is kind of one of those important pillars in kids horror history. Not a lot of people would give this movie enough credit for that, but like I said, without this movie, I don't think the Silver Age would have happened when it did. And I honestly don't think it would have been the same without it, because I don't think Haunting Hour would have happened. Period. So we owe a lot
Yeah.
to this movie. I personally wish that they actually kept this a movie series for a little bit and maybe did like 2 other movies before the show came out. Just saying, instead of going into mostly ghostly, which that's a whole other topic. But if you've ever seen those movies, good God Almighty, good God
No.
Almighty, dude. This is easily the best of, I think, that string of Universal R.L. Stine movies. But yeah, um, I have nothing else to say about it. Unless you want to add anything else to it, we can get into our final thoughts here.
Yeah, I don't think I have much else to say. It's just a really, really fun and kind of nostalgic movie, which I hate using the word nostalgic because I wasn't even alive, I don't think. But
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
it's close enough. You probably saw this movie on reruns as a kid, so
Yeah, who knows? I
yeah.
probably did.
So I think this brings us full circle to what we were talking about before. Like, we just looked at 5 movies, y'all, from the dark ages of kids horror. These are basically the 5 biggest examples we could find and talk about. And honestly, I think they do kind of represent the era, because looking at all 5 of these movies, you start with kids horror shifting out of television, shifting out of straight to TV movies that are considered classics nowadays, and shifting out of book series and stuff, and going to amusement parks. They're becoming a niche novelty. And then you see some small players trying to capitalize on maybe a missed market opportunity and failing miserably, like Monster Makers. And then theatrical movies come out and say, hey, maybe we can do some kids horror adjacent things like Sathura. And then we have Monster House coming out, basically becoming a brand new kids horror family movie classic. And then people from the 90s heyday coming back into the woodwork and saying, hey, look, maybe we can take another stab at it. I think this is the right time to do it. We've taken enough time off. It's been about 10 years. Let's come back to R.L. Stine. Let's come back to kids horror. Let's bring it back. Harry
Yeah.
Potter's done. let's see what we can do. And sure enough, they brought it back. But
So cool.
these movies really do represent that 5 year period where there was just like nothing coming out, but at least we had something, right?
Hmm.
Um, and for me, I think that while all these movies aren't talked about as much as they are, I do kind of understand why they aren't. Because when we look at the grand scheme of kids horror, everybody will talk about ad nauseum the 90s. And maybe if you remember like Nightmare Room and the DCOM era of kids horror, you might talk about the early 2000s. But other than that, the next biggest thing people talk about is Goosebumps Horrorland and Haunting Hour. It's almost like those 5 years never existed.
Yeah.
It's almost like none of these things existed in that time period. And we're here to shed light on that. But I do get why. It's just there wasn't a lot coming out. There just wasn't enough to keep it alive. Right? This was a
Hmm.
time where Harry Potter had brain rotted us into thinking about wizards and going to Hogwarts and dreaming one day that an amusement park will bring Harry Potter to life, and we all manifested that to happen. But kids horror, there was just minimal, and the quality definitely was scattershot. I mean, definitely, you
Ooh.
can have really terrible movies, and then you can have absolute bangers. So it
Yeah.
was a big old crapshoot. So that brings us to, I guess, our rankings of these movies before we head out. Bruce, I'll give you the floor first. How would you rank these 5 movies, in your opinion, from worst or least favorite to best or favorite?
Okay. Number 5, Zathura. And it's just barely, I mean, not even zero point 0.5 like points below it, or below my next pick, I mean. This movie is just so irritating at points, mostly because of the characters. Uh, Good ideas or not, I don't think there's many because it's, for the most part, just recycling some old ideas. I think that this quite easily has to be my least favorite. Maybe I'll rewatch it in the future and I'll change my opinions on it. Probably not for a while. But I think that the next movie, my number 4 pick, Monster Makers, at least I had a little bit of fun watching. I think the sheriff character is kind of funny. And I guess the mom is okay.
Linda Blair. I mean, it is Linda Blair. I'll give you that. I mean,
It's
she wasn't.
Linda Blair, the one and only. And I mean, I guess the actual cop characters that aren't fake are kind of funny. So technically the characters are like a million times better already. And you know, pretty bad story, but I'd rather have a bad, I guess, original story than a recycled story, even if there's some stuff they altered. It's my number 4. My number 3 has to be Haunted Lighthouse. This movie couldn't have gone any further up, right? It's held by its weaknesses, really. It's held down, right? This could have been better if it, tried harder as a story, but of course it didn't want to because, well, R.L. Stein was lazy as fuck, I guess. And I don't blame him. It was supposed to be a theme park ride, right? So, you know, whether you like 40 stuff or not, I bet it would have been fun. I think everybody would have had fun watching this in 40. Watching it nowadays with a shitty camcorder that somebody's holding up in the theater back in 2003, it's just shit quality. I just can't see myself ever going back to it unless there is a amazing rip, great quality, and I honestly, unless someone that worked at SeaWorld or maybe someone that produced the film, something or other, has that and is willing to upload that online, which is just never gonna happen. I'm never going back to this thing. Let's be honest, guys. My number two, Haunting Hour. Don't think about it. This movie was almost great. Pretty cheap feeling, but it does a lot with what it has to work with. And I think that overall, there's not many flaws, but some of the flaws weigh down the score quite a bit, which is not a good thing. If there's ever big flaws in a movie, I'd rather have a lot of little flaws than a few big ones. And then my number one, Monster House, arguably one of the best kids horror movies I've ever seen. Maybe one of the best kids horror pieces of media I've ever experienced. So yeah, that was a very fun watch, and it was honestly pretty fun watching all these, except for Zethura. So
Except for Cythera. Okay.
yeah,
All right. All right. So, I guess our list is not too far off. My clear bottom, my least favorite of these is Monster Makers. I have no words. Like I said, I think that this is top 5 worst things ever made in kids horror. I mean, good God Almighty, this is like that kind of territory. Rating wise, this would be a straight F, and this is with the kids horror curve, y'all. I'd probably give this maybe a 1.5 out of 5 stars. But I hated it so vehemently, I might actually give it a 1 out of 5 stars. It was so bad. Even though it has Linda Blair, the guy from Old Chief Wanted Head, it has Adam Baldwin, has some, I guess, decent-ish monster effects, but yeah, no, not for me, y'all. The next step up, now this is like a whole step up, like quite a few steps up from here. We have Haunted Lighthouse, is my number 4. For the novelty of watching it, not a bad watch. But in terms of like would I rewatch it over the other 3 to talk about? No. Like you said, I don't see myself needing to come back to this. It's good for what it is, but comparing it on like a rating scale to everything else, it's mostly just okay. Like you don't get the full experience that you're supposed to get from it. You do have Christopher Lloyd, but if I want to watch something with Christopher Lloyd and R.L. Stine, I'm going to go watch When Good Ghouls Go Bad. I'm not going to watch this. I probably give this like maybe like a 3.3 out of 5 stars. So yeah, number 3 is kind of a step up from it slightly, and that is Don't Think About It. Love this movie.
slightly.
Nostalgia bubble still there. However, it's hard to watch now. Maybe because I grew up in this time period, and it reminds me of just like being like the same age as the characters in the movie at the same time this movie came out, and it just makes me feel cringy inside. I don't know what it is about it. There's something like personal about it like that. The budget isn't the greatest. They definitely put all the budget into the monster. It's an obvious ad ploy for Papa John's and Dasani water. The little brother character is atrocious. I I'm being as fair as possible. I think it does have some decent atmosphere. It is rewatchable. This is not a movie to scoff at. No, I would rewatch this movie every year probably, because I
Yeah.
do have that nostalgia with it. So yeah, I'd probably give this like maybe if I'm feeling generous. If I'm feeling generous, I'd give this a 3.5 out of 5 stars, which is like a low good. So I'm fine putting it there. Um, so my number 2 would be obviously Zathura. Now, I don't think this is the greatest movie ever, but I think it's like a solid good movie for what it is. So it's like it has its problems. I do think that the characters can be annoying. They're kind of grady at times, especially in like the first act of the movie. And then it does kind of go that corny cliche route. Once we get near the middle into climax range, you can kind of see where the movie's going. And while it's touching and while it's wholesome, like, eh. But the action and sci-fi stuff in this movie is pretty fun. The monster effects are great. The peril events of the movie, like if you're coming to this movie for the spectacle of sci-fi action adventure, that it does offer that pretty solidly. But if you're coming here for story, I probably give this like a 3.9. That's my ceiling with it, like a C plus. You know, it's a good movie, not quite very good. It's just solid.
Mm.
Um, and then my number one, to clear a 5 out of 5 all day in the play, Monster House, the magnum opus of Robert Zemeckis, in my opinion. Yes, I think this is Robert Zemeckis' best movie. Shoot me, Back to the Future fans. I don't care. Even though Back to the Future is my second favorite. I
Yeah.
love this film to pieces. I love everything about it. I watch it every single year, maybe at least twice a year, some years. Um, and like I said, I saw this movie 15 times when it was in theaters originally. That's how much I loved it. I've never, and I mean never, have gone that extent with any other film. Because I was that obsessed. Maybe because I was in a kid's horror drought. Maybe because I was a fan that needed my fix. I don't know. But something compelled me to go support this movie, and I'm glad I did. I have my original DVD copy when I was a kid over here on my shelf. I have pretty much all versions you can get on Blu-ray of it. If it ever comes out on 4K, I am buying it. I am buying the Steelbook if they put one out for it. Small Soldiers got one. Let's get Monster House one. So yeah, love this movie. Love it. Easy
Yeah.
number. Clearly above the other ones. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
I honestly, I mean, of course, we agree with our number ones, but I definitely don't blame you for putting Monster Makers bottom of the list. I mean, it's objectively the worst movie here in just every way possible.
It is one of those things like there's a DVD of this movie, y'all. The only one on this list that doesn't have a physical release on I guess it's movie is Haunted Lighthouse, but you can buy the book of it. You can go buy Don't Think About It's DVD. I don't think I ever got a Blu-ray. You can go get Monster House on Blu-ray. You can go get Zathura on Blu-ray. But Monster Makers you can get on DVD. And people ask like crazy money for this out of print thing. Do not pay that. Go on this Russian website and watch it where we did. Um, you know, watch it for free. Do not waste your money on this. If you
I,
ever want to dare to watch this thing,
dude, I try to screen mirror it from my phone because I do this a lot when I'm watching movies online. I tried screen mirroring it from the website to my TV, and it says download the app and you can do it. And I went, I don't give a fuck what viruses I'm getting. I downloaded that thing and I immediately screen shared it to my TV. I hate watching movies on my phone. So if you guys want to watch on your TV, no viruses yet. This is the same phone that I used to screen mirror it. So it's all Russian.
all Russian, yeah. But yeah, if I ever find the DVD of this on physical, I would buy it if it was like $1. But ain't no way I'm paying $15 to $20 online prices for this. Ain't no way. It's not worth it.
Oh
Um,
man.
I am a kids horror aficionado. I do collect, but I am not paying that kind of money for that.
I wouldn't either.
No,
I would definitely
I put my foot
not.
down. I put my foot down for the garbage.
Oh
Um,
boy.
but yeah, so yeah, that's the Dark Ages, and some people might be like, well, if Monster Makers was that bad, maybe the Dark Ages are bad. No. Don't take it like that. There's some great stuff in here that we talked about. I'm sure there's some other movies that people probably expected us to talk about, like the Halloween Town sequels that came out in this time that deserve to be forgotten. And that other Disney Channel original movie that was Halloween themed that doesn't count.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, these movies, I guess, feel the closest to kind of what kids horror in the 90s was doing and what will later be doing in 2010s. Even though, movies like Sathura and Monster House kind of have, and Monster Makers even has that like distinct vibe where it's more family movie oriented. I will
Mhm.
say Haunted Lighthouse and Don't Think About It do have that old school nature to them, the bookends. So you do kind of get that vibe here with them.
Mhm.
So yeah, check all these out if you want. Use your own discretion. Let us know down in the comment section if you watch these movies. If you're following along with us, let us know what you thought about them. How would you rate them from worst to best, or your least favorite to favorite? If you're not subscribed to Bruce over at the Goose Block, I'm going to put a link to his channel down in the description and in the comment section of this video. Please go sub him up. He's great. He does a lot of collab work with the Goosebumps community at large and just horror community that we've built here on this platform. He has a bunch of videos coming out this October. Stay tuned for that release. He's going to have a bunch of new content for you all. And
Heck yeah.
if you like his content, please go show him some love. If you like this video, please drop a comment if you want. If you have any suggestions for future collabs for me and Bruce to do together, we're also open to some discussions. If you like to hear us go back and forth with things. So yeah, until next time, y'all, please take care, be safe out there, and stay spooky for this coming October season, and have a happy Halloween this year. Take care.